Hey everybody, it is Kellen Nitro for Nitromaniac TV's Drag Files channel, coming at you with something a little different here today. It is the 2021 NHRA Camping World Series preview. Yeah, that's right. I can't do this alone. I had to bring in a couple fellow drag racing YouTubers and social media personalities in, and I am thankful that these guys found time in their busy schedule to come and join me. So first off, I'm going to say hey to Darin Williams Jr. He runs American Hot Rod Entertainment, doing deep dives on the grand history of North America's fastest motorsport. Speaking as a Canadian here, but here we go. Darin, welcome to Nitromaniac TV's Drag Files.
What's up, man? How's it going? Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. And as well, we've got Andrew Morales, who is Drew from Drew's Nitro's Images. You've seen his stuff on Instagram, and he's also venturing. We'll get to everybody's plugs at the end of the show, but you're also venturing into the YouTube sphere a little bit too, as well, Andrew?
Oh yeah, doing a little bit here and there, mixing it up a bit. And it was great to meet you, Keelan. First time we've met, so it's gonna be pretty fun.
Exactly. And you guys are two West Coast boys. You're out in California. I'm snowbound right now. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So it's kind of it's a snowy time. Our season up here doesn't really get going until end of April, early part of May. And so we're still a couple months away from it. That's when all the snow decides to melt and so on and so forth. But
Darin and I will overnight you a couple extra shovels.
Yes.
It's sunny out here in Los Angeles. It's hot and sunny.
I was going to say too, the overnighting might not work just because I think both of our postal systems is
That's
a little right now. So we need
by the time you get it, it might be thought over.
Yeah, we need JR Todd to run the funny car up here with the DHL stuff and rapid delivery, you know. For sure.
Cool.
Yeah, bring back the Bob Vandergriff UPS car.
Oh yeah, there we go. That was a paint scheme. That was pretty cool. I like that.
That was a nice one, wasn't it? Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, I'd like to see him knock on the door and say, "All right, package delivered."
Exactly. Just pop out full Hans.
Or maybe Jordan Vandergriff.
Yeah, Jordan Vandergriff too. Yeah, for sure. So I'll start here with the schedule. Dave dropped the schedule, I want to say probably about a month or two ago, and some changes. And my first question for you guys being, Southern California boys, how weird is it not to have two events under the belt already? Because if this was any normal year, we would have already had Phoenix and Pomona, the Winter Nationals, under our belt.
It's definitely. Oh, you can go first, Andrew.
No, you're good. Go ahead. American Hot Rod Entertainment all day.
Thanks, man. It's gonna be different though. I mean, I've been following drag racing since I was a little kid, and all I've known is kicking off the season in Pomona, the Winter Nationals. First race of the season. Let's get it going. But I'm just happy that drag racing is back. And so if we have to start from Florida this year, I'm happy with it. Gainesville, the Gator Nationals, one of the biggest races of the year. I love it. But next year, let's get back to Pomona, first race of the year. But I love Gainesville, so I'm happy with it.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, how about you?
Well, it hurts, man, growing up, like Darin said, growing up at the track and going every year. You get in that routine like you do for school. September comes, like August, it's time to go to school. When February comes, time to go to Pomona. So seeing all these timelines come up of your past years and your memories and say, man, about this time we should be there. So it kind of hurts, but to drive a little bit further to get the same entertainment, it's no big deal. It's part of it, and you get to venture off in some new tracks and see a little bit more on the circuit.
Yeah, I just miss seeing all the new schemes, the new paint, new liveries for the year, the new lineups, seeing everything kind of unfold on social media. We get there's always a crush of like new content from NHRA and from all of the teams and everything, and testing and everything leading up to it, which we're starting to get now. It's starting to creep out as we record this here, with the Gators being the first race of the year. But yeah, I agree. The vibe is just, it's different, but it's also great to know that, hey, we're actually going to be rolling here.
Yeah, better racing than no racing. That's for sure.
And it's true though, in the past we'll have two races under our belts already, and so it is kind of different. But like I said, I'm happy to get it going. Just to have drag racing starting. Florida's kind of like the hub of where everything is starting right now. With they had a couple of divisional races about a month ago. They're having winter warm up out there. Next weekend you have the World Door Summer Nationals happening next weekend. So Florida is kind of like the hub of drag racing right now. So it's pretty cool.
Mhm.
You know, definitely.
Florida's doing something right. We're missing out over here.
Still, even last year, 2020, they were able. I thought drag racing was, and NHRA really handled its rebound from the coronavirus shutdown as one of the best motorsports rollouts out there, and across the board, even one of the best pro sports rollouts out there. Yeah,
Definitely.
sure, there was 4 races in Indy to get everything going, but these 4 races you were able to watch no matter where you were on Fox, on the big broadcast network, Fox, not FS1 or anything like that, but on the actual network. And just it just expanded from there. There was, got the momentum going. It got into the U.S. Nationals. It was great. And then the tour of about 6 or 7 races that was left at the end of last year, I thought really set the table really nicely for this year.
Yeah.
With all of how the championships went down and so on and so forth. So thoughts on that?
Even with John Force not being there, the Indy races were plenty of. They held plenty of competition, and it would have been nice to see them there. But hey, we understand where they're coming from, so that was a great move for their half and their part. But we saw everything we wanted to, and then some. Especially like you said, with other sports being canceled. NASCAR having no fans in attendance, NHRA having that gave a little bit more than, like you said, anything else that we saw along the way of 2020.
I mean, definitely, and even you see the changes, qualifying, only 2 qualifying sessions, and that made qualifying a lot more exciting. You really had to get down that first run, or you're in trouble going into Q2, which is the final qualifying session. So qualifying was really exciting. And then the racing was great too. And we saw some great championship battles all the way right down to the wire. With the fewer races, you had Doug Cleta, Steve Torrence. That one went right down to the wire. Funny car, you had the 3 Don Schumacher cars. Ron Capps was on the outside, but for the most part, you had 3 Don Schumacher cars, 2 rounds apart going for it for the championship. And that was pretty exciting. And then, you had your championships in pro stock motorcycle too, with Eric Anders and Matt Smith pulling it out. So, 2020 was still a pretty successful season, especially like you said, with everything going on. NHRA handled it very well, and excited to see how they do in 2021.
Yeah, and it was just, even speaking from a local level, and the local tracks, and I know it's different from state to state, province to province, whatever that you would see, but I thought that the guidelines that NHRA had handed down to all of its member tracks as they start to open and kind of let and working with their local jurisdictions on how many people could be in attendance and what could go, what couldn't go, I thought was actually really, really good. And I think like the only real adjustments we had, for example, up here for anything was I think like our attendance for like bracket races and that stuff on a weekend were kind of limited to maybe about 100 to 150 fans in the stands, and we had to be socially distanced, but still providing all of the stuff that you need, so your hand sanitizers and so on and so forth, and no restrictions basically in the pits where you can walk around and still have the same accessibility and everything that you had prior to the pandemic.
I haven't been back to the track since. So the Winter Nationals was actually my last race.
Oh wow!
Before the pandemic hit. So I haven't been back to the track since. So I can't wait till the Winter Nationals. But Drew, actually, you went to the finale in Vegas, right?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
So what was like
it was very different. Yeah, like you're very different. The atmosphere, you're used to kind of shoulder to shoulders. You look back on photos, really packed. I mean, sure, in the early 2000s, late 90s, it was really, those grandstands were really full. But given the last couple of years, it's been a packed house. And not seeing that, pits were wide open. I have photos, and, people were very spread out. Everybody was wearing a mask. So people wanted to see drag racing and see it back at its peak. So they did what they could to make sure that, hey, they come back here and that they keep running races. But it was very different. The show from the grandstands and from the point of view was the same. Hey, you get what you pay for and then some. You get to watch these, 11,000 horsepower cars. People have been to street races. People have been to junior drag races. It's nothing like some Nitro cars. Even NASCAR, like you, Darin, you're a big NASCAR guy and you're a fan of all kinds of motorsports, but it was exciting to see, especially in this new era and the future that's going to be ahead of us. So we know what to expect moving forward. And I mean, hey, the drivers are still out there signing autographs, taking pictures. I have a post on my profile, and when Matt Hagan won that championship, boy, you wouldn't have thought it was a pandemic. He was celebrating with those fans. He was having a good time, but he's still wearing his mask and stuff. He was still doing his part, but nothing will change that celebration. And Steve Torrance's pit was fired up. Those guys are blasting music throughout the whole pit area. Everybody knew what they were listening to. They were listening about everything, and it was pretty fun to see. So there was plenty of entertainment, even with the pandemic going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I can tell you that Vegas race looked awesome on NHRA TV and watching it, I'm sure through Fox as well, or FS1, I should say. But the package that they provided on NHRA TV for all of the events leading up to the finale last year was really good. And that service, in my opinion, it takes some pot shots, and that stuff, just because other people have other over the top services and they like to compare it and say, well, we can do this better, we can do that better, and everything. And I think it will eventually get to that point. It's just, it's going to be a massive undertaking for somebody just to go through all those old races and get them uploaded up there one of these days. It's the 70th season of NHRA racing this year in 2021. So it's, you're going through literally 70 years of content from, stuff that people were shooting on old 8mm cameras to, what the folks do every weekend on a national event circuit and that stuff. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that service evolves throughout the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's going to be great to follow along.
For sure. Let's start class by class here, and we'll kind of take a look at the 4 professional classes here today, and kind of give you guys our picks on who's going to be champion, who's going to have a great year, who we think is going to step out, so on and so forth. So are you guys big pro stock bike guys, or just like I kind of throughout the years and that stuff have been kind of on and off with the pro stock bike class. Some years I like watching it, and some years I'm like so
yeah. I'll tell you, this year I'm going to be a big pro stock fan, especially with Angel Sempe. With her new mission sponsor and tortillas coming on board. I'm going to get a pack of tortillas and say, hey, you mind signing this for me? And I won't touch them. I'll just leave them there. Nice. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And with their new bike setups from Vance and Hines, it's going to be fun this year compared to other years, and what will be different about it. And if they compare the new 4-valve setup to the Harley Davidson setup, because that was very controversial when that came out. So, who wants to pick a bone now? But it's going to be fun to watch. Side-by-side racing is always fun, especially when it's on a bike. And you see the hair flying in the wind. And you see them getting ready to get thrown off. So it's going to be pretty fun.
What about the big announcement with Harley leaving? That was pretty big over this offseason.
Ooh.
Yeah,
so that was.
And so the specifics on that one, that was they're leaving at the end of the season. Is that correct?
No, I believe they're gone.
They are gone. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Ship has sailed.
Okay. So yeah, that's going to be that's kind of obviously you don't want to see that, and you never want to see a major manufacturer leave any category or any motorsport, but it kind of kicks off with something like that. It kind of kicks off kind of an interesting subculture, because we think through the years in drag racing, when a major manufacturer leaves the sport for whatever reason, then that's when all the parts kind of get divvied up amongst the racers, and it's wide open R&D. Like, you get some wild stuff developed from, these, because there's no factory backing or anything like that. Guys are just taking a look at this and be like, okay, well, if we make a couple tweaks here and maybe, change the measurement there and that stuff, we can squeeze out, maybe an extra 10 horsepower or whatever at this track. Let's see what happens,
And I think I remember, Harley, of course they left, but if I remember correctly, I was listening to Alan Reinhardt on WFO radio with Joe Costello, and he was saying, yes, Harley's gone, but that's not going to stop people from riding Harleys. They just won't have the backing and the funding from Harley.
Right.
So I love hearing those Harleys. They sound mean going down the racetrack. So
yeah, it'll be great memories to look back on, and the success and the sound of those bikes. Like Darin said, they're still going to be out there, still going to be performing, but the impact that they had was a great impact. And although the brand's not going to be out there, people are still going to show up who have Harleys and say, hey, I'm still representing, watching those go down the track.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody's pick to click this year in Pro Stock Harley. It's that class is so tough to pick a world champion in. It is just absolutely just a real tough class. But man, I after you sold me on Angela, Andrew, so I'm probably going to go with her for the championship this year. She's resurgent, man. She's the last year she found that missing step that she needed to last year towards the end of the year and was making some solid runs. So
definitely, she was flying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a fan favorite across the board. Everybody, loves her, has great memories about her being on bikes. So her winning ways will come back sooner, hopefully faster than some of the other people, and she'll probably get a couple wins in the season and be in the championship hunt when it comes down to it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, for sure. So, gentlemen, who are your picks to click in a Pro Stock bike? Is it Angela across the board here, or do we have some other names that we're going to watch for?
So, Angel, I'm a big fan of Angel. She's been my favorite Pro Stock bike rider since I was a little kid. Love Angel, especially late 90s, early 2000s. But I think the championship still has to go through Matt Smith. He puts in the work, and he's a badass. So I think the championship still has to go through Matt Smith. Definitely.
For sure.
And being an Andrew, like Darin said, I'm a big fan of Angel, but being an Andrew, I got to go for Andrew Hines. You stick with one another. I think he's going to do great. He's going to come back and prove and show everything he's got. And there's a lot on the line this year, coming out of a pandemic year into a new season of maybe canceled and new scheduled races. So every race will count when it matters, and they know that every round is going to be a big one.
Joey Gladstone's still running this season, correct? He's still got a ride for 2021. I think he does.
I believe so.
I believe he does. I don't think full season, but he's for sure going to be out there for at least a handful of the races.
Yeah, so he's going to be my dark horse pick. I think Joey Gladstone's going to win a couple of events this year before the season is out. So, well, we got to talk about Pro Stock just because that class just gets wilder and wilder by the season. It's so close on Sunday watching these races in that category. And Erica locked out again last year and ran really well, got the championship, but there were a few contenders towards the end of the year that were kind of nipping at her heels a little bit. Matt Hartford, for one, really impressed me in 2020, and I think he's going to have a huge 2021 going forward. And it's kind of cool because everybody was counting Pro Stock kind of down and out as a class, and I think there's still a few people that are. But I think that if they rattle off a strong season here in 2021 as a class and provide some of the news, the drama, and a lot of the close racing that category always gives us, I think that they're going to be on the upward trend again for sure for years to come.
Definitely. Eric, a four-time champ, but, who I'm looking at in 2021, like you said, Matt Harper, great driver, always good on the tree. It makes great runs. But I'm also looking at Alex Laughlin. Out of Elite Motorsports as well. Alex Laughlin, he's a cool dude, always great with the fans. He runs good. He's great on the lights also, and he just looks like a cool dude. And I would love to see him, run for a championship this year. But definitely give Eric a run for her money, hopefully.
Yeah, Eric Enders is definitely the favorite. I don't think it's easy to bet against her, but with Troy Coughlin Jr. coming up, and you have Greg Anderson, always been a strong guy. You have Bo Butner's not going to be there anymore. Jason Lyon's not going to be around anymore. So that's a tough pill to swallow, but new guys, Fernando Quadra. You have a couple more people making debuts this year. The next generation of drivers in Pro Stock are going to take over. Hey, at one time, Warren Johnson, Kurt Johnson, Jason Lyon, all these guys are rookie drivers. So it's going to be fun to see these next generation guys come in and put the pedal to the metal and show and prove why they should be around. But for me, it's kind of hard to pick somebody else other than Erica Enders. She's had the most consistent car, probably for the last 5 years, and it's shown. So she's going to add another one, I believe. And like Kelleen was saying, you know, if DraftKings or somebody had odds, I'd put half my savings on it.
That's another thing too that I'd like just we were talking quickly before we started rolling here is I would love, and you know that's the power now that NHRA has with Camping World and with Marcus. You have to help me out because I always botch his pronunciation. I think it's Marcus Lemonis, right? That's the last.
Yeah.
Pretty close, yeah.
Pretty close, yeah. So, but he's
maybe my pronunciation is a little off of his too. So Darin would know.
All right.
I think it's Marcus Lemonis, right? I think
it is Lemonis.
So.
Yeah. So, but he is a connected guy because you know he's on what's that show, Shark Tank, and owns all these companies and is publicly always getting into things on Twitter too, which is, you know, both a blessing and a curse at times if you run a series of corporations. But when you're that powerful, you can do whatever. Basically, and you know that's the thing is that I would love to see, you know, within the next couple of years, an online a gambling site like a Bodog.net or a DraftKings pick up the NHRA and say, hey, put your money down. Who's going to win the Southern Nationals or who's going to win the U.S. Nationals or so, and actually have odds for these guys and girls as they qualify and that stuff. And you know, if I want, you know, if there's 500 to 1 odds for Krista Baldwin to win, you know, Atlanta, for example, or something like that in Top Fuel, then great. You know, put $20 down and let's see what happens.
Yeah, 1 out of 16 people are gonna have a shot, so might as well pick one. Pick your favorite. Pick someone you've had a picture with, and say, you know what, I'm going with so and so this weekend.
Yep. Exactly, for sure. So yeah, that basically is a good bridge over to the Nitro category. So we'll start with Nitro Funny Car. It was a DSR juggernaut last season, as they were hot prior to the pandemic starting, and then of course they were the hot team, the hot act going on after the pandemic resumption and that stuff. But I think the real cool thing that was one of the storylines last year in 2020 was the emergence of the smaller funded, or as we used to call them back in the old days, the privateer teams. You know, just kind of up their act, because you had guys like Paul Lee, Alex Milodonovich, you can go on and on and on just naming names, but it was cool. It kind of was reminiscent of watching Funny Car back in the 90s, when basically if you qualified on Sunday, you had a ticket to the dance, and anybody who had a ticket to the dance could be the winner on Sunday.
Definitely. And, you know, more cars, the better. You know, it makes qualifying that much more exciting, you know, having to see people try to fight their way into the show. And then, like you said, anything goes on Sunday, you know, so the more cars, the better. You know, there's a lot more people making their debuts in 2021 also. So, and Nitro Funny Cars gonna be fun, especially with John Forrest Racing coming back. Look out, Funny Cars gonna be cool.
Yeah, for sure. We got
from a couple years ago. Schumacher had four cars, 4 Nitro, 4 Top Fuel cars, 4 Funny Cars. So to see them go from 2 Top Fuel cars to now 2 Funny Cars will be pretty big impact on the rest of the field. Every guy, Bob Taskett, Tim Wilkerson, Cruz Pedregon, Alex Mildinovich, like you said, those guys are going to have an opportunity to take out these cars. There's going to be 2 force cars, level playing field. People have pretty good parts. You know, people sell old, pretty well maintained parts to guys like, you know, Cruz and Alex Mildinovich, and they run with it, and everybody can run pretty well. And it's going to be really fun to see those cars come out and header flames go up. But there's nothing that beats, you know, 4th round qualifying. Well, now it's going to be third session in qualifying. 3. I don't know how many events are going to be doing 3 sessions or 2, but those first couple cars that pull up to the water box, and they know that, hey, we got to get into the field. So whether we pedal it, whether we get out of the groove and bring it back in, you're going to see those first couple cars is just as entertaining as the number 1 and 2 qualifier, because those guys got something to prove and they're out there gunning it.
The events that we consider the Grand Slam events of the sport, so like the Gator Nationals, which will be the first event this year, if we get a chance to run the Winter Nationals, it'll be up there as well, the US Nationals, so on and so forth. These are the events that typically get kind of the larger car counts of the year, and those events will be the most fun to watch on Friday and Saturday, or Saturday, whatever the case may be, because it's going to be a dogfight from first pair on to the final pair in each session to see what happens. There's going to be some wild stuff happening, as there always is, but I think that it's I think the potential for the golden era, late 80s, early 90s style of wildness in Nitro Funny Car is going to be a potential this year in 2021. I'm just looking at the tea leaves right now, and there's a lot of moving parts that will not, I don't think they'll even settle by the time we get to Gainesville. I think that this is going to be something that's going to be throughout the entire season. That's just going to be just on and on and on. And it's going to be wild just to see.
Hey, Kellen, don't say if we get the Winter Nationals, though. Hopefully we get the Winter Nationals.
Yes, exactly. It will happen.
Even if they don't open the gates, I'm showing up.
Yeah, I was going to say, even though the event will be, we could title the Winter Nationals and that stuff, it might be in mid-July or something, but
Hey, remember we had a Pomona race in July in 2001. Remember the 50th anniversary Nationals? So
yes,
we have had a Pomona race in July. So, hey, it can happen.
My question would be, how many of the crew chiefs and crew members that are in the sport currently with Pro Stock and Pro Stock Bike, it's basically, there's a different way of tuning for each track and that stuff and so on and so forth. But for the big, powerful Nitro cars, how many of these tuners and crew chiefs and that stuff were crew guys back in 2001 and can remember, setups for like a Pomona in July, or, if something gets rescheduled to say later in the year for XYZ reasons or something. So that's another, again, something to watch for this year. Is like everything else, there's a guideline out there, there's a schedule, but is everything set in stone? Not so much. It's just going to be kind of stuff coming in and flying all over the radar, basically. So, but it's
NHRA,
that's what we'll keep. Go ahead.
I was gonna say NHRA, has some of the best mechanics, engineers in the world in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they'll adjust, they'll be fine. I don't think last year you had Gainesville in March, but then it got pushed back to September. We still saw great racing, still saw great performance. So definitely, these guys will adapt and they'll make the right changes. And like these crew chiefs, they know how to get down, so they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it levels a playing field, not knowing where races are going to take place, what's going to happen week to week, month to month. And like we're talking about some of these crew members, it's fun to see on social media, like Coletta Motorsports guys. They're working on the Carter airplanes too, and the Coletta Air. They're kind of getting their hands dirty in both areas when they can, and they're hopping right back over to a funny car and a dragster, and no problem.
Yeah, and even the kind of the offshoots of the sport, of the professional categories, as well as we were talking about the trickle down effect with all the parts and surplus equipment and everything. I mean, I go onto social media and take a look at a guy like Rob Wendland, who's worked with Terry McMillan for so many years and that stuff. He's recently went and picked up two funny car bodies from like the early 2000s. From Dean Scusa's shop, of all places. So, you take a look at that and think, is he going to do this kind of funny car chaos match race type stuff that's gotten big over the past, couple years or so with somebody, or what's going on? I can tell you up here, we got, in my area, there's no less than 6 or 8 nostalgia Nitro Funny Car teams that constantly run on the heritage circuit in the States, and they're all loading up this year, and whether the border's open or not, they're going to be racing the car. So we might have a kind of an offshoot Canadian nostalgia Nitro Funny Car series here, running from track to track. Or, if the border opens up, then they can run the Heritage Series too. So guys are putting their best foot forward for 21.
Definitely.
Piece by piece. I wouldn't mind buying that body.
Hey, so can I ask you guys two questions real quick?
Yeah.
So, speaking of funny car, Jack Beckman and Tommy Johnson Jr. with no ride coming into 2021, and John Medellin and Dean Antonelli had that car flying. Jack Beckman's car, that Infinite Hero car, flying. Almost won the championship. Even at the end of 2019, had that car flying, running on mean. So to not have that team back, John Medellin and Dean Antonelli, excuse me, moving over to Ron Capps. And for TJ was running good last year as well. Was in that championship battle as well. John Collins moving over to Cruz Petragon. So I just want you to, just want to ask you guys what you guys think about that. Those changes as far as Tommy and Jack Beckman not having rides, and John Collins going over to Cruz, and Dean Antonelli and John Mellon going over to Beckman. What do you guys think about that?
Andrew,
excuse me, Capps. Going over to Capps.
Andrew, go ahead, and then I'll answer after you.
I think it's sad to see Beckman not walk away, but be without a ride, and Tommy Johnson Jr. But I think the idea of Ron Capps driving that car that was Jack Beckman's, taking over that team, like they've talked about in NHRA's videos and stuff like that, they're not going to be adapting to Ron Capps' car. Ron Capps is going to be adapting to John Mellon and Dean Antonelli's setup and what that car was the past year and seasons before. That's going to be really exciting. I have my money on Cruz all the way, winning at least three national events this year, at least, and then being in the hunt for the championship, because that Make-A-Wish car was very fast. And to bring every single guy over to another team and implement their skill, their mindset into that car, it's going to show. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of debate out throughout the year of, hey, Cruz is this kind of driver and Tommy Johnson was this driver. So it may come down to who is in the seat. And depending on who was in that seat last year, maybe it would have had a different outcome. But it's going to be fun to watch all the way.
Cruz Petragon is back. John Collins going to have that car running good. I'm excited for Cruz.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I agree with Andrew. I think Cruz will definitely squeeze in at least an event victory this year somewhere along the line. Maybe
put the DraftKings picks now. Three and up.
Exactly. Check out let's get the odds set to Vegas for sure. But my wild card prediction for the year is I got two of them here. And this is what shows like this is. It's all about. It's making the wild card fantasy predictions here. Number one, I don't think we have heard the last of either Jack Beckman or Tommy Johnson Jr. at DSR.
Nope.
Because I think that once we get down to, say, Indy and getting close to the countdown and those races at the end of the year for the championship, if somebody like Capps or Hagen is going for that title and Schumacher has the funding and has a little bit of sponsorship money to run some part-time races, I think we're going to see another Dodge out there with either Beckman or Johnson out there running as,
keeping him fresh.
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, like that's the thing is that we could see that happening. Also, don't forget the name Austin Prock. Here's a guy that's licensed in both Top Fuel and Funny Car. Currently doesn't have a ride in either class right now going forward. And same deal. If John Force, Robert Height are going for a championship and they need an extra car out there, it's kind of cool having a guy that's on Robert Height's team or something that can easily step into that spot with all the extra funding or something for like a couple of races or whatever, and he rolls out there and he can knock out a rival in the second round or something like that. So
maybe we could see Austin Prock 1 month in a Funny Car and the other month in a Top Fuel car, mixing it up. We haven't seen a guy run two categories in a year. Same year in a long time, and I bet you he could do it. I bet you he'd be willing and able to do it.
Oh yeah,
entertaining guy, very, very smart. He can handle a race car as good as any of these young guys can. And he just proved that in the Chili Bowl. I mean, when was the last time some Nitro guys got in the mix with a couple of dirt and NASCAR and IndyCar guys? I mean, Gary Selzy and Ron Capps comes to mind. So
yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah, but those guys really didn't have legit chances of winning the Chili Bowl when Austin Prock went down there to win or to run that race. Everybody had him listed as one of the top 5 guys to watch for winning the thing, just because of his open wheel experience and how good he was. So yeah, I think the sky's the limit for him. And I think that just the fact that he's starting the season with no ride in any of the Nitro categories is not, I guess, reflective of where he'll be at the end of the season. I think he'll be in the mix somewhere at the end of the season, whether it be in Top Fuel or Funny Car, going forward.
He just posted a photo. It was real interesting of him in the cockpit of, I believe, John Force's car.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look real closely, he was wearing a hat that said APR, Austin Proc Racing. So he's looking to do a lot of branding of his own and look at all the different opportunities that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how cool is that though, to be able to work with your dad though on the Auto Club car, the Proc Rocket? That's pretty cool, Oh
man.
But what I was gonna say was, it's no secret that I'm a huge John Force fan and a huge John Force racing fan. So of course I'm excited for them to be back. And I don't think anybody's really giving John Force a chance, but never count out the 16-time champ. Never count him out. He's gonna run good this year.
And just to put
in height too.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry, you go.
I was going to say, just to put a bow on your thought there, Darin, JFR has experience with father-son teams before in the past. John and Eric Medlin.
Yeah.
And then, of course, father-daughter teams, Ashley and John. So
definitely,
if anybody would understand the family dynamic, I think they would probably be, the best. Well, Schumacher as well, though, too, with Tony and Don, the father-son dynamic, right? So it's man, it is so interesting. Trying to make a prediction on who's going to win, Top Fuel and Funny Car this year for the World Championship, who to pick. Like, my sentimental favorite all the time will be John Force. I think realistically, I'm going to hedge. If I had to make that DraftKings bet this year, I think I'd hedge. I think I'd hedge my bet on Robert Height winning the title. I think that he'll come back and have a really strong season. DSR cars are going to be tough, like I said, and they could always flip the script on everybody and roll out an extra car for an extra race or two with either Tommy or Jack and bring them back into the fold for a race or two or whatever. But JFR could do the same thing with Austin Proc, right? So it's going to be a fun thing to watch. And then of course we talked about it earlier, all of the smaller teams, the single car teams, Cruz definitely is going to win at least a race or two this year. Paul Lee, I think, is going to break through and get some victories as well. Alex Miladonovich has some funding for a part-time schedule as well from a sponsorship side to do some stuff on the West Coast. So he's going to be a guy that everybody's going to watch as well. And drag racing, the great unknown, you have no idea who's going to roll into the pits on Thursday with an operation turnkey that can, walk out and win some races. So it's going to be just Funny Car, I think, is going to be the class to watch, with Top Fuel being, closely behind, but it might flip-flop from a week-to-week basis. So,
and don't count on my boy JR Todd.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, don't count on JR Todd.
Didn't even touch on the Coletta cars, right? And they're always there.
Don't count them out.
Deadly consistent. Yeah, that's the thing, right?
Especially in the countdown too. That DXL car knows how to get hot in the countdown. So don't count out JR.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. So,
JR Todd would have to be a pick of mine going into the season. Mm-hmm. Heavy favorite. He's a great driver. I mean, there's not many guys that are as young and as great and consistent as he is. The car, you can't blame the car for everything. He always holds himself to a higher standard. But my picks would have to be, I'd have to go outside the box. I mean, it's been from 1992 to 2008 when Cruz won his championships. That was a 16-year drought. Mm-hmm. And so when you add that time into now, it's getting very familiar to where, hey, that time's catching up, and he's, something's got to peak, something's got to give. So I would, I'm going to not just pick one. I'll pick three guys. It'd be the Robert Height, Bruce Pedregon, or like Darin said, JR Todd. Those cars. I won't pick a Schumacher car. Nothing against Schumacher cars, but it's a long season, and as long as we get a full season, plenty of other guys are going to get their rhythm. They're going to get their stride, and with only two cars in each category now, it really opens up the playing field.
And so for me, Robert Height, before the pandemic hit, Robert Height was the reigning Funny Car champion. And so he has not been able to defend his championship yet. So I think Jimmy Proc, Robert Height, and the whole Auto Club team are going to come into 2021 looking on a mission to defend their title. But for me, on my YouTube channel, American High Ride Entertainment, we put a huge emphasis on championship battles. We review a lot of old championship battles. So what I'm going to do is, instead of picking a champion, I'm a say what I think the championship battle is going to be this year. So I'm gonna go with Matt Hagan, Robert Height, J.R. Todd, and I gotta throw in John Force, a 4-way battle for the Funny Car Championship this year between those 4 drivers.
Yeah,
that's what I like to see.
I'm apt to agree with you, Darin. I think that that's going to be a battle between those 4 cars. They are just they're the 4 best on paper. They're the 4 best funded on paper. They've just got everything going for them. And we talked about the strategies that each team can roll out there and everything and so on and so forth. It's just going to be a chess battle all year. And I think they got the 4 best crews in the category and so on and so forth. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I predict on that 4. I'm still going with Height, but man, that's going to be that is going to be a tough battle to watch. And we could make the transition now going into something that could be equally as tough, if not even more epic. Top Fuel this year. Last year, of course, Steve Torrence just adding to his dominance and winning another championship and winning all the events that he did, and his dad Billy having a great year as well too. But again, we have the return of Brittany Force back into the category, and still with that question mark of Austin Prock. If he shows up, later on in the year with something, he's a contender immediately. The Coletta cars, Doug Coletta, Sean Langdon, guys like that. This is going to be, a huge deal. We've got the influx of some new talent with Krista Baldwin getting her feet wet, I should say, in Top Fuel a little bit with, some stuff from her grandfather's operation and I think kind of a it's like a hybrid agreement, I think, with DSR with some equipment and everything. So that could, if they get some money and some funding, that could be a quality hot rod. Josh Hart is coming into the category and is going to be, I think he's making a debut at the Gator Nationals already this year, which would make perfect sense since that's his home track. Another Top Fuel guy from Ocala, Florida. Go figure, right? So,
and how about Mike Salinas? Salinas and
Scrappers.
God, I forgot his name.
Alan Johnson.
I forgot his name. Scott Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Palmer coming back. Those cars were great heading into 2020.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lot of momentum going, and all of a sudden, pandemic hit, and they parked the cars, which I don't think a year off will hurt them as much as people will say. Just like the Force cars, I don't think a whole season off will really do that much impact, because you run what you bring. As long as you have good equipment, you're going to go down the track, and it's about what you do on race day and qualifying that'll separate you from the competition.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some other guys that will be interesting to watch along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Darin, who are you watching?
So first off, I'm going to start with Mike Salinas. Alan Johnson, that whole connection. Brian Houston's one of the best crew chiefs out there. I think he's going to have Mike running good. So definitely looking at that. Also, Antron Brown, back with Brian Karate, Mark Oswald. Obviously, Brian Karate went to Force for a couple of years, but now he's back. Last year didn't have the results you kind of thought they would after, they won 3 championships with each other, beforehand. So didn't have quite the results they won it last year, coming back together. But I think this year in 2021, that Brian Karate, Mark Oswald, Antron Brown all back together again. I think they're going to gel this year, and they're going to be back to their winning ways of when they won all those championships, those 3 titles back in the day. And then, of course, Brittany Force, David Grubnick. David Grubnick is one of the up-and-coming great crew chiefs also, and Brittany's a great driver. So Monster Energy backing her. I'm really cool. Really looking forward to see what they do. So Top Fuel's going to be pretty fun. So those are the 3 drivers I'm really looking at. But Steve Torrence, man. Steve Torrence, that dude.
Oh, boy.
Man. We may be looking at championship number 5. So 4. What did 4? Yeah. So championship number 4. So yeah, watch out.
Yeah, is this reminiscent of, a lot of people have talked about this, but I'll throw it out there. Is what Torrance doing right now in Top Fuel, is it reminiscent to how Force dominated funny cars in the 90s?
It's I wouldn't say as far as Force, I compare it more to Schumacher, in those days.
Yeah.
What Force did was pretty crazy, but it's very similar to Schumacher, what he did in the mid-2000s, when he went on that run. Definitely very similar. I know Fox Sports did kind of like a graphic side-by-side of Schumacher's results of his dominance and Steve Torrance's results of his dominance, and it was pretty close. So that's what I kind of related more to. It's more so Schumacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Steve Torrence isn't done yet. There's plenty of years ahead of us and ahead of him. So you can't write him off yet. He could go off and win another 4 or 5 in a row, especially what happened with Dominic Lagana. He's got a lot riding on him. He's got a lot to prove. He's hungry. You wouldn't think a guy like that who's so hot can get hungrier, but he's going to be tough to beat. So Doug Coletta is going to have a tough go with him all year as they did last year. There's Leah Pruitt, Clay Milliken. There's cars like that are very consistent and that could win on any given race day, on any given track. But Steve Torrence is at the top of the mountain, just looking down, saying, "Hey, come get me." So it'll only a matter of time until the stats are really laid out there and until we see what he does. But I wouldn't go with anybody else but Steve Torrence in 2021.
Yeah, I'm apt to agree there. I think that Steve will end up in the mix for a championship this year. Is this the year that Doug finally gets it done? You know, I'm
love to see it.
I'd love to see it. Yeah, I would love to see it. It's tough to bet against Torrance right now. But again, like we said with Funny Card, there are 4 to 6 guys and girls that can honestly make a run at this as well. Leah Pruitt, we haven't mentioned her name and at all and that stuff. She's going to be resurgent as well this year. I know that I felt that after the deal in St. Louis with the accident and that stuff, that team, I'm not sure if she herself was injured and just playing hurt the rest of the season, or just the team itself was kind of gun shy for the rest of the year and that stuff. But I felt that they kind of that affected their performance going forward a little bit. But I think that with that attitude now and everything, that whole new year, and you can put 2020 in the background, I think that team is going to do a lot this year. So I think I'm going to include her in my 4 to watch. It'll be Steve-O, Leah, we'll go Doug, and Brittany Force. And I think that's going to be the 4 that'll be fighting it out for the championship. So
yeah, Leah's a badass, you know. She's gonna come back strong in 2021, you know, definitely. But I mean, for my picks, you know, like I said, you know, at first they got to go through Steve Torrance first, though, you know. So, but I'm going with Steve, Brittany, Antron, Dougie, and I'm gonna throw Mike Salinas in there too. I think it'd be a good 5-way battle for the championship that year. You know, Mike Salinas come back. You know, watch out for that team. You know, Alan Johnson. You know, of course, one of the greatest tuners of all time. You know, and Brian Houston. You know, his protege. Like Brian Houston's a bad man too, and Mike Salinas a great driver also. I think they're gonna be running good this year, so don't count him out either.
Exactly.
Yeah, nothing against Brittany Force, but I think a year out of the car for her might be a little tougher than a year out of a car for Force or Robert Height. So my top 4 would be the same as it was last year, minus one guy. I think Doug Coletta, Steve Torrance, and Leah Pruitt are going to be in it again. I think that crash in St. Louis made her a better driver. She didn't have the same car with that momentum going forward into the season. She couldn't finish it with our car. So I'm sure she's going to be better all around. She's focused. She's motivated. But another guy I think is going to be in the hunt there, peaking every weekend, you know, gaining up in points, is Justin Ashley. He's got a solid car, solid team, solid momentum, great reaction times. He could be in the next 10 years a Steve Torrance like driver. You know, he's a single car team, his own operation. His dad looks after the program with him, and that's a lot of experience there. And everybody in the pits, you know, enjoys this guy. Maybe minus Leah Pruitt. Maybe Leah Pruitt and him don't get along, but you know, everybody respects him. They know what he brings to the table. They know what he brings for the sport. A young guy, businessman, you know. So he's going to be one that will creep when it matters, and I think he'll be in the mix there. And also he'll win a couple of events this year. Which ones, I don't know. Maybe even the Gator Nationals. He's a surprise, and he's one to watch.
Rivalries are what the sport has been made of since day one. Since they rolled out the guy with the converted World War II gas tank on wheels out at Santa Ana back in the day, racing, Billy Bob with his converted sedan, right? That's the big rival. That was a big rivalry of the day back in the early 50s and so on and so forth. We've seen it for years, and that's great because for guys like us, it makes great YouTube content for later on down the line too. 5 or 10 years, we could take a look back at this and say, hey, that's awesome. So yeah, that's another thing too that I think NHRA has going for it is there are rivalries now in the sport again that weren't in the sport 3, 4, 5 years ago to watch. You had mentioned what was it, Justin Ashley and Leah Pruitt. With Brittany coming back in, there's Brittany and Steve-O going head to head. There's John Force versus DSR. That's 2 full teams going head to head. And then of course there's the recent developments of Coletta versus DSR with in the funny car classes and that stuff. And then it's basically pro stock. I would say it's everybody against elites. It's elite versus the world in pro stock, right? And then and so on and so forth, and it's great. There are so many storylines going into this season and races and everything that it's just going to be entertained. It's just going to be a matter of the guys getting the stories out there. And I think Fox is doing a tremendous job of doing that. And I think it's getting a lot better down the line from them. And I can't wait to see what happens. I just wish that, this is my small gripe being a Canadian. So this is, minority speaking here. Hello. Is that the Fox Sport, I would love to see more races on Sunday on the actual Fox network because it's easier for us to get up here. That's about it. Not every cable package up here in Canada gets FS1. So, and I'm in the small group that doesn't. So,
so NHRA, for Keelan's sake, put it on Fox. Keelan needs to get up today. He needs to watch these every weekend.
That's right. Yeah, gotta put at least the eliminations on Sunday on Fox. Come on, let's talk football.
Yeah,
what is football? I mean, really, no,
there's plenty of games going around. Let's get one drag racing stick going.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, that's great stuff. So, well, we've given you guys who we are watching this year, so now it is a plug time. So I want to thank these guys for jumping on. Darin, tell us what's happening with American Hot Rod Entertainment. What's the latest? What have you got cooking this year?
Before I do that, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
As far as Top Fuel, talking about Justin Ashley, picking up Mike Green as his crew chief, that's a big addition right there. So Mike Green, one of those great crew chiefs, who won championship with Schumacher. So watch out for Justin Ashley, like Andrew said. That's gonna be like a dark horse right there. And and don't count out Billy Torrance as well. It's kind of like a clone of that Steve Torrance car. So don't count out Billy. I don't know if he's doing a full pull, but he's gonna win a couple races too. But as far as American High Ride Entertainment, just dropped a J.R. Todd video, his first ever win in Top Fuel in Denver. That was a pretty cool moment. Stopped the Sarge in the final. It's pretty exciting. And so hopefully, my channel's based around NHRA Historic Championship Battle. So hoping to get out a new championship battle video out soon. Hopefully looking at Dick LaHaye versus Joe Amato 1987. So look forward to that. So trying to work on that soon, or maybe even Kenny Bernstein's 1987 championship season with the Batmobile. So look forward to some cool content coming to my channel, and should be pretty fun.
Excellent. And the link to Darin's channel is below. Drew, you got Nitro's images on, or it's Drew's Nitro's images on Instagram. Tell us what's happening with that, and plug your YouTube as well. So,
well, we're gonna keep the content going there and the photos coming out. Always taking photos every national event I go to. I'm looking to go to a lot more this year, especially because Pomona. Who knows what's gonna happen? It's a flip of a coin. Doesn't look like it's gonna happen in April, so maybe down the line, but. Looking to go to races like Houston, Denver, possibly, just some of the stuff, maybe an Indy race. So I'm going to be posting a lot more. You're going to be seeing a lot more of me. We're going to venture off and do some new stuff here. There's other things in the works and things that I enjoy doing that are going to shine some light. And, racing's number one. So like me and Darin talk about a lot. We're big NBA guys, basketball guys, but nothing fuels us more than drag racing, and that's going to be what we're gonna put a lot more out of. So, nice meeting you, man. It was great talking with you
Yeah.
guys, and hope to do it some more here.
Oh, we'll definitely re-up as the season goes on and continue talking and kind of take a look at all these storylines and expand upon what we talked about today too. NBA wise for me, I'm a Raptors fan, so we're kind of a little bit right now, but that happens after you win a championship and do well for a couple of seasons, and then it kind of just fizzles out. So it's cyclical. Pro sports is cyclical,
but not with Steve Torrance and Eric Anders, though. That doesn't happen with them.
Dynasties, man. Dynasties. We're watching two.
Yeah,
we're watching two people.
This is Showtime Lakers. Yeah, this is Showtime Lakers. Steve Torrance version.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, I'm a big hockey guy, and so Steve Torrance is doing what the Detroit Red Wings were doing back in the late '90s. Winning all the Stanley Cups and that stuff. So, and just dominating. So, but we're watching with people like Steve Torrance and Erica Enders and that stuff. People who will have their names inscribed at that International Drag Racing Hall of Fame in Ocala one day on that statue out in front of Garlett's Museum and everything. So it's kind of really cool to see that. Yeah, for sure. Going forward. But my stuff, tinyurl.com/drag files. We're in flux right now because we're just waiting to see what we can do locally, for events and everything. And then as soon as we get the green light, I'll be out there with the camera shooting content. So, obviously it's awesome to get you guys on and pretty cool. And like I said, we'll definitely do this again as the season rolls on and sit down and kind of round table a few stuff. We for full disclosure, we threw an invite out as well to Monday Morning Racer. He has an event this weekend that he is shooting. Otherwise he would have been here with us, but I would love to get the four of us together later on the season and just kind of talk about, our experience, how we're watching and how we're interpreting the season as it rolls, so just
and
like
have our picks changed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll have to write down. I will keep track of the picks as the season rolls on, and we'll, at the end of the season, we take a look at it and be like, "Whoa, wow, I picked that person. Oh boy."
Hey, so
yeah,
NHRA. If we can't get the Winter Nationals in April, since it is NHRA's 70th anniversary, let's just do like a throwback to 2001. Move Pomona to July. I know Pomona has a time limit. You got to be done by a certain time, but let's push it back to the afternoon. Have a night race in Pomona. Just like we did in 2001. The 70th anniversary Nationals in Pomona in July. Still called the Winter Nationals, but it's just in July. Hey, let's just do it.
And this
is a throwback
and make it the biggest, baddest thing of the summer. What you do is you throw that race on as part of the Western Swing. And just roll it on out, and you have the prime time on Fox on a Saturday night.
Exactly.
Roll it out. Exactly. And get the musical act out there. Whoever you want.
We're in California. We're in Los Angeles. Not far from Los Angeles. Do it.
Yeah.
Prime
yeah.
time,
Bring
Saturday
Ice Cube,
Fox.
Snoop Dogg. I bet you they wouldn't mind seeing some Nitro cars.
Yeah. And roll out the red carpet to Hollywood. Let's get some celebs out there and that stuff. I mean, like, we've seen Carmen Electra at NHRA races. We've seen, you name it throughout the years, people. But just let's roll out the red carpet. Let's get some of the hot celebrities of right now out on the starting line, feeling that horsepower, in first round of Top Fuel and Funny Car and just get.
Yeah, they wouldn't be so worried about COVID. They'd be worried about those nitro fumes. And they'd say, "Hey, man, I wasn't expecting this."
So I literally just have a note that's been handed to me here saying, "Hey, we love pro mods up here." Yes, like I said, we don't just wanted to try to keep this as condensed as possible and that stuff. But hey, a pro mod video later on in the year is definitely possible because some of our guys, when the borders open, run the pro mod classes with the real pro mods and that stuff and actually do really well. So it's kind of really cool to see that and so on and so forth. But anyways, I'm Kellen Nitro. Later days, happy drag racing watching. Thanks again, guys, for doing this. And the season is literally days away, folks. So make your picks, sit back, and enjoy the 2021 Camping World Drag Racing season. We'll see you next time on Nitromaniac TV's Drag Racing or Drag Files, I should say. We'll see you next time
And
on.
subscribe to Drag Files.
Yeah,
That's
subscribe
right.
to Drag Files. Follow Andrew on Instagram with Drew's Nitros Images, and for God's sake, go over to Darin's channel and let's get him above 1,000 subs. His stuff is quality. We gotta get him some of that YouTube money. Come on.
Thank you, man.
That's right.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. All right. See you next time, folks.